This episode is brought to you through a partnership with Suncoast Credit Union.
Welcome to the Ignite Project, a Polk County Public Schools podcast made for teachers by teachers. Teachers of all experience levels need each other's enthusiasm and passion to fuel an ongoing desire to do what it takes to meet the needs of our students. And that's what this podcast is all about. Be energized by their enthusiasm to ignite a love for teaching while they challenge others to join them in their work. Join us now.
I'm Jessica Solano, the Teacher Engagement Leader here at Polk County Public Schools. I have 11 years teaching in Polk County, experience with Polk County Public Schools, and definitely a hallmark moment for me was in 2017 being selected as Florida Teacher of the Year. So many amazing opportunities have opened, including this opportunity to serve as Teacher Engagement Leader. But what has really made a mark has been listening to the stories of all of these teachers who were in my own district, in my own state, who were passionate about what they believed in when it came to education. And so I'm excited to introduce our guest, Brandi Miller, who's with us today. Brandy is an elementary teacher at Walter Caldwell Elementary here in Polk County Public Schools. She's been in the game for 14 years, and what's amazing is that all of those years have not only been in our district, but also at the same school. And what's even more incredible is that Brandy actually went to Walter Caldwell Elementary when she was a kid too. So the amazing tie to your school, Brandy, is just so powerful. She's also graduated from one of our local colleges, Florida Southern College in Lakeland. And she characterizes her love of teaching as one that's centered around building relationships. So we're excited that we get a chance to peek into her classroom today, literally as we're joining through Zoom and getting to see a little bit of what her classroom looks like this year. But then also we're really excited to hear her talk about the power of a connected classroom. And I've known Brandy for a few years, and so getting to see how things have changed over time, and even in this era with COVID-19 and coming back to school, I think it's so timely to be able to talk about this. I love when I talk to you that when you talk about your students, you always call them your kids. And I love it. I do the same thing. Sometimes it throws people off, right? You're saying, oh, my kids, and they're thinking you're talking about your actual children, but they're your students, right? And you see them as your kids. So just so the audience can get a feel for what you do to build relationships with your students, can you tell us about that Friday lunch bunch that you do and how that works and building relationships for your students?
Okay, so as you stated, I do refer to my students as my kids. I don't have kids of my own, so all of my students kind of take on that role of being my personal kid. And so a couple of years ago, I decided to implement Friday Lunch Bunch, and each Friday I pick a handful of students and we all go out to the picnic tables and they get to lead the conversation. So sometimes it's about their favorite animal or what they're going to do over the weekend or just things that are going on, but they are the ones that are guiding the conversation. And I use that time to make common connections with them or to kind of gain a little insight into their personal lives. And I'm able to use that information in my classroom, whether it be like their favorite sports, bringing in activities that surround that, or learning that they do play a sport, and then I'm going to seek them out on the weekends to go check them out and play, because I want my students to know that I not only support and believe in them here at school, but that I'm invested in them as the whole child, and so that takes place outside of school as well.
Yeah, that is so powerful. And are you finding you're still able to do that now that we've come back to school in this type of setting, or is there a substitute that you're using?
So I'm glad that you asked that, because it is something I have been processing. The first 2 weeks I really have been utilizing that time to build routines and procedures. We're taking a week on, week off in the cafeteria and then eating in our classroom. And so I'm really hoping to be able to initiate that lunch bunch in the next coming weeks and then proceed using it through the rest of the year, because I see a lot of value in that opportunity to connect with my students.
Yeah, it's so powerful. It's little things like that that really make all the difference. And I think that really goes well with this idea of a connected classroom and how powerful it is. I think that especially after going through distance learning and having so much time at home, we've all felt this disconnection. So tell me, what does this connected classroom mean? And what does it look like?
Okay, so I'm just going to give you a little background knowledge to this. So as was stated, this is my 14th year of teaching, all in first grade. And so leading up to my 10th year, I could teach first grade in my sleep. I still loved the grade and I loved the age, but I had kind of grown a little stagnant. And so I had come across the book. It was recommended to me by our AP and another teacher friend, and it was Kids Deserve It. And I read the book, and in the book, it covered so many things that really pushed me and inspired me, and I was able to grow upon reading the book. But one of the things that it talked about in the book was not to live on an island. And it hit me because I was like, I kind of do my own thing in the classroom. I work with my team, but there's this wealth of knowledge and connections that await me. And so I really, at that moment, was inspired to get on Twitter. And in the connections I was starting to make on Twitter, this idea came to have my students get connected. And so what Connected Classroom looks like is I use tech tools to allow my students to connect with students, classrooms, educators, and authors from all over the world. So when I first started out, I really didn't have this big plan in mind. It was I printed a map of the United States and let's just see who we can connect with. But as that year progressed, my goal became for us to try and connect with someone from all 50 states. And so each connection looks a little different. But what ended up happening that year was we were able to connect with someone from all 50 states. We were able to connect with someone from 3 different countries. And it was an incredible journey and learning experience for my students. And so the basis behind it is the power of allowing your students to learn beyond the 4 walls of your classroom.
I love that. Awesome. And I think that is so closely aligns with this idea that you don't know what you don't know, right? And so if you are able to expose your students to have these connections and these experiences, you're really putting them to be so much better off because they're able to see the world is so much bigger than my classroom or my city or my neighborhood. That is so incredible. And so you have been able then to make all these connections through Twitter, right? Or is there other ways that you were able to bring them in?
So initially it was through Twitter, and what I would put out there is there somebody that wants to connect? And it all really began with somebody else saying, hey, I'm looking for a younger age class to do a global collaboration with. And I was like, oh, I'm interested. And that moment is what sparked this domino positive effect of this goal of trying to connect with someone from all 50 states. So when we talk about each collaboration, I said they're unique. So sometimes it's just an educator or even an author connecting with us and reading a story to us. We had the privilege, I've had Peter Reynolds read to my class.
Awesome.
He was our Massachusetts connection that year. And so after we connect with someone who we've met, they get to choose what color they want us to color in the state on our map. So that ties in that whole geography connection into our lesson, because the students are getting to map where we've connected with throughout the process. Another time, or we'll do connections with students, it's always learning based. So we love to play the game Mystery Letter. As simple as it sounds, it really creates this opportunity for some higher order thinking and critical thinking skills. The students, we select a letter, and the class that we're connecting with selects a letter. And the students have to come up with yes or no questions to ask to try to be the first ones to guess the other class's letter. So it's this whole error analysis, and they're charting it as we're asking these questions. So does the letter have a slanted line? Is the letter a vowel? So, it's this process of elimination as we're going throughout it. And then that morphed into mystery number, mystery shape. We did a global collaboration with a class from another country, and we did mystery transportation. So there was this list of all these different ways that you could be transported, and we had to come up with questions for that. And so it just provides the students with an opportunity to put their learning and their thinking to the test as they're connecting with other students.
Right. I love it. It's such a great way to bring ownership to the students. They're bringing it that this is a fun activity, but I'm also learning and making connections too. That's fantastic. So do you stay connected with these different classrooms, or is it kind of like I talked to New Jersey and now I'm on to California? Or is it something that is kind of that you're able to stay connected throughout the year?
It's a mixture. It is. So that initial year when our goal was to try to connect with someone from all 50 states, some of them were just one-time connections, but others weren't. And there were classes that we connected with multiple times throughout the year, in which my students then called them their friends. And I actually had an opportunity to go down and visit one of the classes that we had connected with. And in this span of 3 years I've been doing this, I've had 3 different educators who've connected with my class who've come to Caldwell to meet my students.
Oh my goodness.
So that then, it just takes the learning to a whole new level because it brings it to life. And, a funny story that I have is I have a student who struggled to verbalize at times. And one day I was listening to him with one of the other students up at our map. And she was asking him, have you been to this state? And she was pointing to it. And he was shaking his head, yes. And then, have you been to this state? And he was shaking his head, yes. And so I'm just kind of watching because I'm like, I just don't know. And so then when I asked, I'm like, have you really been? He's like, my friends lived there. And he started renaming some of the people we had connected with. And in that moment, I realized some of these students will never be able to fly on an airplane and travel the world. But I've at least given them that exposure to see different places. Because oftentimes when we're doing a collaboration, the teacher or the educator that we're connecting with will show them outside the snow falling on the ground.
Wow.
We'll show them that this is what it looks like in our school, in our classroom. And so my students are able to make these real world connections that I can't give them right here in my classroom, but they've been exposed to it and they're learning through these global collaborations.
Wow, that is so powerful. I love it. It's kind of making me think of 21st century version of pen pals, right? I have this friendship here. Yeah.
It is. And one of the platforms that we've used a variety. I don't know if I'm jumping ahead, but we connect where it's the Zoom, it's the Google Hangout, it's the Skype, and that moment back and forth. But we've also used Flipgrid and Seesaw to connect. And in those moments, I actually give the students their own virtual pen pals. So they're collaborating back and forth with the same student for various learning tasks. And they really do develop this connection with that individual that they've never met.
I love that you brought that up because I bet too with all the shift to having to use technology even heavier than we have before, I think a lot more people are aware of Zoom and Skype and Teams and even Flipgrid and Seesaw like you're talking about. So it kind of leads into this segue of, would this still happen in a COVID-19 blended learning, e-learning, campus learning classroom? Would it happen more? Would it happen less? Or what? How do you see this looking this year?
So before I talk about this year, let's go back to March 13th on that Friday when we said goodbye to our students, and we did not realize
everything changed.
Yeah, I didn't realize that was the last moment I was going to be face to face with those students. And so we went into that next week, and then the following week was spring break. And it was over spring break that I had a student who shared with their mom, I wonder if we'll get to connect like Miss Miller's class does with our other people. And I'm like, in that moment going, absolutely. And so I was able to set up some connections where we were able to do Zoom and the kids were able to see each other through the remainder of the school year. And so as we move into this year, right now I'm face to face, but I'm also aware that at any moment I could transition to distance learning again, the e-learning. And so I keep that in my forefront of my mind of what it would look like. And absolutely, I would be wanting to have the Zooms where they're able to see and learn together, utilizing Flipgrid or Seesaw where it's the learning task and they're collaborating back and forth. If anything, the window of opportunities has widened now that this is the reality for a lot of teachers and their students. And the learning shouldn't stop because we've moved to e-learning. There's an endless possibility for learning to take place now.
100%. Yeah, teachers are being so innovative right now. I know whenever we're getting pushed, it's hard and it's challenging for sure. But it is really amazing to see how people are being so innovative in ways like this and saying, hey, we're going to stay connected. If this happens, I have a plan, and keeping them connected. But I know that the other side of me is thinking, I'm sure as teachers are kind of dipping their toe into this or thinking, man, maybe I can do this global collaboration like Brandy's talking about. I'm sure they're wondering about it. What are the safety things, though, that I have to keep in mind? Right? If I'm trying to get my e-learning class connected with another class, and my students are at home, what type of things do they need to keep in mind so that everyone is kind of at ease that this is still a safe way to be able to connect with other classrooms?
Oh, absolutely. For those who are just starting out or interested in testing the waters, I really highly encourage you to find someone else on your campus, that is also in the same boat. Or if you're the e-learning teacher and there's campus taking place, pair up with them. So then you are familiar and comfortable with the other teacher that you're working with, and hopefully the same parameters are in place for safety as far as with Schoology and what tools you're using with that. For those who are looking for other avenues, there's Mystery Skype, where you can sign up to have Skype with a scientist. So as simple as that. Or there's opportunities where you can sign up to have people read aloud to your class. I would look for opportunities that are either pre-recorded or you can sign up with a platform like that, because for the most part, those really have that safety parameter in place. What I like about Flipgrid is you have passwords and codes that you are implementing and using so that it's really safe, and it gives the students an opportunity just within each other to collaborate with each other. Because that's something to remember, is that especially with e-learning, they're not together. And so providing them with that opportunity or that platform, it's that global collaboration amongst your class family.
Right. It's such a fantastic idea, too, even just another teacher in your school. And why not now, right? If I have a fifth grade classroom that is an e-learning classroom and isn't getting that same type of interaction with another classroom that might be on campus, that's a great way to get their global connection started. I love it. So see, all this kind of seems like it's STEM, like you're talking about with Twitter, right? And making these connections, putting it out there. Who wants to connect with us? So for those who have never even dipped a toe in the Twitter world water, which was definitely me just a few years ago, can you explain what it is? I love how everyone has different explanations or descriptions of Twitter. So explain what Twitter is, how it's different from other social media platforms, right, like Facebook, Instagram, and why should they be a part of it as an educator?
Okay, so my relationship with Twitter started about, 7-8 years ago when I was encouraged to create a Twitter account. And I created it. And I didn't open the app for 3 or 4 years because in my mind, Twitter was something celebrities used to tweet out. Didn't know any more than that. And so 4 years ago, I was doing a book study with my AP and I think 2 other teachers, and we were reading Crash Course by Kim Bearden. And for whatever reason, I decided that I was going to tweet out, I'm excited to be starting our book study on Crash Course by Kim Bearden tonight. And she liked and she commented on it. And in that moment, I'm thinking, oh my gosh, this edu celebrity that I adore, who I'm reading her book, saw that and responded. And I was like, oh my goodness, my mind was blown. And so I remember not really tweeting anything else for a couple of weeks. And then I started the Kids Deserve It book chat. And every week they would focus on a different chapter. And there was always 4 questions. And it just was a great opportunity to follow up and to see how others were interpreting or getting what they were getting from the book. And in that moment of each week getting in that weekly Twitter chat, I was making connections. I was finding people who were sharing ideas, things I was feeling, other people were feeling it too. And so I started to realize that there was a wealth of information. There were resources. There were people that I found to have a lot of information that was pertinent to myself, as well as inspiring to me out there. And I think so often we kind of limit ourselves to collaborating and learning because we just think that it happens during PLCs or it's with the teacher down the hall. But there are so many educators out there who are creating things, who are experiencing things, who have ideas that can really inspire and push you. And so what I've found through Twitter is I've found a community that I feel pushes me to the next level. They challenge my thinking. They share resources and ideas that strengthen me as an educator. And I'm able to learn and grow at my own pace. It's always right there, readily available. I had a friend, he's actually a principal up north that I met on Twitter, who said, when I'm interviewing people, I kind of am looking for their social media stamp. What's their history? What are they doing to grow and to learn? And he said, it always really catches his eye when he hears that someone's connected on Twitter, because what he realizes, he's not just hiring that person, he's hiring a wealth of people through that person because that person's connected and learning with other people. And so for those of you who've not tried Twitter, who don't really have an idea, there are hashtags that you can follow. And so you just put in a hashtag like hashtag kids deserve it, and people are posting things that are connected to that hashtag. There's Twitter chats throughout the week that you can join and be a part of. Even if you're not sure what to do, you just kind of snoop in for the first few weeks just to get some information. But I view Twitter as this big wealth of knowledge, people that can build a learning community for yourself.
Such a great description. That's exactly right.
It's a long description, but
it is. Students like, what's Twitter? I'm like, you got a minute? Because it's going to take me a second to explain it and why you need it. But I know from being in the classroom and different experiences, even at the best school, like even being at Caldwell, right, for 14 years, I'm sure you have a really strong community there. But sometimes you just feel like you're all alone, right? Maybe am I crazy thinking should do this connected classroom? Am I crazy thinking to try this? And I think it's so powerful to be able to connect with other teachers and other educators, whether it's through Twitter or through different programs that we have going on, to be able to say, okay, you and I are very much alike in how we're passionate about, or I never even thought about doing this, and so I'm going to take that idea and I'm going to run with it. So I completely agree with you. Twitter is such an awesome platform to be able to do that, for sure. So go ahead.
I was going to say, and it doesn't always just have to be Twitter. I think about the ed camps that are out there. It's just an opportunity for you to grow and to connect with others. So I don't want people to think it just has to be Twitter. That's what's worked for me. But there's so many opportunities to make those connections and to learn with others.
Yes, I agree. Well, and so part of, I know what has probably been a fear of doing things like Twitter or doing like you're talking about ed camps, right? It's the fear of change. And sometimes we know that with change comes a lot of work. It comes a lot of uncertainty. You're kind of starting back at zero. And I'm sure we don't need to even say that right now. As far as educators go, we're like, we know that there is a lot of change and how it feels. But I've found with the area of technology, more than other areas, right? It's like, well, we've always done it this way, or why does it have to be like that? So what is your response when people are saying, we've always done it this way, and it's seeming to work fine for me? How do you push back on that as far as pushing them to try get outside of their comfort zone?
So what I've found is that we're often ones to put barriers because of our own fears or lack of knowledge. And because we put those barriers or those limits, we're really hurting our kids because our kids are ready. This is the future, and we can't hold them back. And so I kind of have a little personal story in regards to technology and my kind of resistance to it a little bit. A couple of years ago when coding was coming out and everybody wanted to do coding in their classroom, well, I kept saying I wanted to do coding in my classroom, but I wasn't doing it because I was scared. I didn't understand it. I didn't know what to do. Going back to Twitter, I had put out there what's a goal that I would like to do this year in my classroom, coding. And Adam Welcome, who is the author of Kids Deserve It, he messaged me and he's like, then just do it, Brandy. What are you waiting for? Give it your kids a chance. They can teach you. Because that was the problem, is I wanted to do it, but I was scared because I didn't understand it. And so the very next day I came in, came in early, and I had downloaded an app for all of their devices, and I told my students that we were going to try something new, that I didn't know what to do, and I wasn't going to be able to help them, but that I wanted them to be able to help figure it out and teach me. And with Jessica, when I say within 5 minutes, the kids were running up to me to show me what they had just done, and I just sat there in awe going, why? Why did I wait so long? Because they're sponges, and they can figure things out, and it was an awesome opportunity for me to learn from them. And so I think when we think of teachers right now, and maybe they're hesitating to use technology, it's coming from a personal fear. And I just really challenge them to really step back and say, my kids deserve this opportunity, and be willing to give it a shot. It's not always going to be perfect. I tell my kids all the time when we're doing a global collaboration and I can't get Zoom to work, or we can see their picture but we can't hear them, I turn and I look at my kids and I said, boys and girls, this is the beauty of technology. The beauty is sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't, but when it does, we're getting to connect with a class in California. We're getting to connect with a teacher in Australia. Like, you just have to give it a shot and be willing to go and learn and know that it eventually is going to all come together.
That is so powerful. And there's power in vulnerability, right? Just being able to say, yes, I'm the teacher, and I still have things that I don't know how to do, right? And so when we're talking about pushing our students to think critically or to get out of their comfort zone and do these really challenging things, what's more powerful than being able to say, I don't know how to do this. Can you help me? I love it. What an awesome, such an awesome entrance point, really, for them to be able to jump in and say, hey, we're in this together. Such a great perspective. Well, Brandy, I have absolutely loved getting to pick your brain on this. Every time I get to talk to you, I'm just like, no way you're still doing it. That's amazing that this working, or this story and everything, or even some of the stories you've talked about today are so powerful. And had you not taken an opportunity to step outside your comfort zone and to be able to try it, we wouldn't be sitting here today. So I am so excited about that. One thing I want to make sure that we wrap up in every episode is to be able to kind of think forward, because with the Ignite project, we really want to get this idea out, like you're really talking about being connected and seeing that this person's passionate, that's fueling my fire, right? And I have this going on and I'm going to push other people. And so we really want this image of being able to ignite a spark, a positive spark, and mindset and in the movement and the actions that we take as educators in the world that we have today. We can't control everything, but what we can control, we want to make sure that we're pushing other people to join on board with us. So that being said, we have a phrase I want you to go ahead and finish off with me, being, I want to ignite. What would you want to ignite if you had a magic wand and you could get others to jump on board with you?
So I really thought about this and really thinking about what I'm passionate about. I want to ignite a shift in the way that we connect and we collaborate. We as teachers, as well as our students. And so, as I had stated earlier, I want you to realize that there's this wealth of knowledge and resources that are waiting for you beyond your school campus. In our district, there are many, many, many amazing educators out there who are doing incredible things. So I challenge you to share your story, to put yourself out there, and to get connected. Additionally, I challenge you to allow that same opportunity for your students, whether it be as simple as connecting with another class on campus, finding a teacher at another school in Polk County and connecting with, or even biting the gun and getting out there and challenging and finding a class that is halfway around the world. It provides your students with an opportunity to learn, to be exposed to different cultures or areas of the world, and it helps to spark empathy and kindness and to create these connections that are really powerful and lifelong.
I love it. I am so thrilled that people get to hear that and get to feel inspired by it. As you're talking, I'm like head nodding, like, yes, this is exactly what I'm talking about. So awesome. And so I know that as they're moving forward, they're probably going to have questions. So since we've really hit on the subject of Twitter and getting connected, can you go ahead and share your Twitter handle with the audience? So if they wanted to reach out to you and say, hey, how did you do that? This is the issue I'm having. How do I do this? How can they reach you?
So I'm on Twitter at BMILLA84. So at BMilla84.
I love it. Perfect. Well, thank you so much, Brandy. It is an absolute treat. I'm excited for our teachers to be able to connect with you and be able to push their students to connect with each other. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
Are you fired up? You can hear more from teachers like this by joining in teacher engagement events. You won't want to miss out on a monthly virtual new teacher seminar, as well as our major events like Ed Camp and Emerge Symposium. Check out all of our upcoming events by following Teacher Engagement on social media at Teach Engage PCPS, or by visiting the Teacher Engagement page on the Hub.
Thanks for joining us. You can subscribe to the Ignite Project on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, or Spotify, or watch online at the Polk County Public Schools YouTube channel. To learn more about the Ignite Project and other Polk County Public School podcasts, go to polkschoolsfl.com/podcasts.